Should you play The War Within? Blizzard's war on cynicism. I am playing it. So I've already answered that question, but I like Mike. So let's see what the video's about.
The War Within is here. The World Soul Saga, led by Mr. Metzen, has arrived. But one thing is clear, if you're talking to your friends, if you're on websites, if you're checking forums, you're checking live streams, Blizzard has a mountain of cynicism.
Are you serious? Are you kidding me? You really put your Honeybee Lovely cosplay in the first 15 seconds of this video about World of Warcraft. You really did. You really did. Okay.
Blizzard has a mountain of cynicism to climb over.
Okay.
The War Within, no big gameplay features, a little bit of delves here, and also when we see those characters come on, us players can't help but think of one thing. The Wounds Champion!
The Wounds!
What are they doing to fix this? Because, believe me, they're really trying. What prompted this? Well, I've jumped back into WoW to prepare for the War Within. I played through the alpha. It was very exciting, but different.
Is he playing right now?
And now...
No.
Oh, that difference is really clear as to what the hell is going on. Blizzard have been ultra restrained, really restrained with this expansion, and I'm sure you guys have noticed, no mega gameplay feature, and certainly not an abundance of them, right?
Yeah,
for years and years, we've been used to things like Warfronts and Islands are coming, and we've revamped all the daily quests, and now there's this big, like, tower that's coming in, and now we've got all this big crest system, and we've revamped this, and we've done this and this, whole little systems and things coming on to you, and this time it's like, everything's the same as Dragonflight, but we've got delves as well for people who don't like raiding, and also we've made a solo experience for the final boss, so you don't need to go into a raid if you just want to play through the story, and everything else kind of stays the same. We've got hero talents, but they're kind of mostly passive, so don't worry about it too much, and you're like, huh, for a game that is built from the ground up for gameplay as its primary focus, it is its foundation of the game, that's kind of lacking. So where the hell is the attention going this time? What's happening with this big 6-year plan of the World Soul Saga? And the point is very clear. The story. Okay, this is tough. This is really tough because this...
I mean, for me, if it's more of the same of what I got in Dragonflight, I'm going to be happy with that. But then again, I'm not that hardcore of a player. I do plan on playing more in War Within, but I was pretty happy with Dragonflight. And I'm pretty happy with the fact they're adding more solo stuff. Like this solo delve, being able to do that by yourself is amazing. I just did a follower dungeon yesterday in War Within, and it was amazing that I didn't have to join a group for that. So I'm kind of here for the solo player features because it's good to have options of stuff to do when you don't feel like putting a group together.
Cynicism and the wall surrounding World of Warcraft is humongous. It is massive. It is almost insurmountable. And you'll see it in the comments down below. And I want to be clear to the people who are upset.
Yeah, because they have to earn trust back. You know, for me, they won my trust back with Dragonflight. Really. But for a lot of people, it's going to take longer than that.
Who are you talking to? I'm right there with you. I totally get it. It's not surprising. We've been burned badly, my friends.
Yeah,
we've burned badly, but we're not going to dwell on that. I get it. I understand it. But they're really trying. And I've had to sort of reflect on this a little bit because I actually did something as a streamer which was really kind of bad, considering what they're trying to do, but not without cause. So that's why I decided to do this. So I jumped back in. They've got this pre-event going, which allows you to level a character from 60 to 70 in like 30 minutes. Without abusing potions.
I did that.
Thumbs up. I was actually really surprised. And I've used this time to cap all my characters. Dragonflight was the very first time I did not have one of every class capped and ready to go, because obviously I wasn't making guides and things anymore. But I was like, oh, wow, I can actually get up to date, which means I won't have these characters that start to linger and fester going into the War Within and have to go through Dragonflight first. So I've been capping every character and refreshing myself on the gameplay and having a blast.
So there's still a week. So even though early access has started, you can still do the Radiant Echoes event for the week, right? I'm pretty sure you can. This is like the last minute chance if you don't have early access to cap on characters real quick.
Just
check his character's name. Prayful Gacker.
generally really enjoying myself and dealing with massive UI issues. No, I'm not doing a full UI update. Sorry, I will update as I go, but I'm not promising that before you ask. So let's get to the meat of the matter, the story. Let's talk about a few things. So what got me going was the pre-patch storyline involving Magni Bronzebeard. And every time Magni Bronzebeard appears on the screen, I can't help but think of Champion and the wounds. And I basically played out this story as I did read everything, and I was understanding what was going on. Like a stand-up comedy show, I was doing my streamer thing. And it was fine until a couple of hours later when I was sort of going to the gym, and I was thinking to myself, this was FF14, I would not have played this way. In fact, what actually happened was kind of serious and kind of heavy. And I started to reflect on it, I was like, I didn't even give it a fair shot.
Wow.
Now,
all right.
why? And that's the crux of what we're talking about today.
I'm proud of you for realizing that. That is a huge step, because you know what? I always take the story very seriously. But I do this in every game to the point that it might be a little absurd. Like, I remember when I played the Lost Ark, and I'm reading every quest. And people were like, why are you reading quests in Lost Ark? Because it's part of the game. This is part of it. You want me, you put the quest text in the game, you know I'm going to read the quest text. And I thought it was a nice, the scene that he was just showing with Magni, it's the first thing that happens in War Within. And I thought it was pretty interesting, because you expect Magni to just be like, oh, let me go speak to Azeroth right away. I'm the speaker. That's my job. But instead, he's kind of like, Azeroth. Azeroth turned me into a big fucking diamond. Do you think I like having being like shitting rocks? Basically. Do you think I like this? Do you think this is fun for me? Azeroth did this to me, and she doesn't even talk to me anymore. And you want me to help you? Okay, fine. I'll do it just for you. And I'm like, whoa. All right. That's a solid start. This is way more interesting than I thought it was going to be.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
So
Blizzard's got a massive problem in that they have devolved most of their characters into absolute memes. Complete memes because of the, I'll say it, atrocious storytelling we've had over the last few years. In particular, we are looking at BFA and Shadowlands here. Shadowlands in particular. Yeah, we've got some standout examples of just how horrendous the writing has been. You might remember the silly tweet we did during Shadowlands when you literally open the doors in Maldraxxus, you give them their home back, you re-armor the Primus's corpse and all these kinds of things, and then if you don't choose them, like, well, you're not allowed in anymore. It's so stupid. It's so... We literally provided this for you, and you're like, well, you're not coming in because you didn't choose us. Instead of any other system, such as we're allowed everywhere except this segment, which is for the Maldraxxus people only, right? This kind of thing. But no.
Some of it was really stupid as hell. Like, I remember doing the Night Fae quests, and there's a really important thing that we know the bad guys want, and we've hidden it in the most obvious spot imaginable, which is the center of the city where everyone knows that it is, and the bad guys are attacking and nobody's there, like in the middle of the city, to make sure that nobody takes this super important thing that they are here to get. And we're all like, wait, was anybody guarding the middle of the city? No, dude. They're probably there right now. So we have to people run over there, and they're like, oh, we've already got it. You're too late. That was horrible. Okay.
No, you're just not allowed in. And the same with the Kyrians, the same with Revendreth, and all this awful butting of heads that happened of gameplay and systems versus storytelling that did not mesh in any way, shape, or form, and led to these just massive illogical holes in what the hell was happening in the story for us as the player to force this down a certain road. And you just sat there going, it's just stupid. It's just really stupid, and it makes no sense, and I hate it, and I don't like it. And of course, many people drifted away, and that was for a good reason.
Honestly, the worst thing that Shadowlands did was what it did to Arthas. That was probably the worst thing Well, yeah, it was. That was the worst thing. I think probably the worst thing that you can do is take beloved characters that people know and they like and they care about and just absolutely destroying them in the story. That's it would be better if you just like if you flub the writing for new characters. That's one thing. But it's the established characters that people have years of a sentimental attachment to. When that doesn't go well, that's what really hurts. Because that feels like it has a long lasting effect. Also, when you rewrite the existing lore and you alter the way that the cosmos works, you alter the way that we know things are supposed to work, that also feels really, because it's like, it's okay. We can forgive a one-time story that was shit. But the real problem is when those effects last and stretch out far beyond the bounds of that little one-time expansion, you know, which is kind of a big problem that we've had with Shadowlands. Now we have all this shit we need to retcon.
WoW coasted for a long time on its gameplay. It actually didn't matter too much to a lot of players if the story was kind of weak at points, because playing the game itself was fun enough. But of course, we get to Shadowlands and the gameplay itself devolves, right, into farming bloody soulbinds, and now I've got to spend half an hour in Torghast every week. And if I've got an alt, I need to spend multiplicative amounts of times in there and blow all my gold that I just can't really afford to be spending 250,000 gold.
Oh my gosh, he's actually still so traumatized. I remember watching Mike's videos in Shadowlands, and he had such a bad time. He was having, I've never seen anyone have less fun. He was just suffering. It was pure torture for him. And now he's like, but I remember back then, and I remember how horrible it was. This is him having to learn to trust again. Mike, it's okay. Shadowlands was like a lot of expansions ago. You can move on. It's
like
safe
item level
now.
increase on my legendary items,
It's okay,
things like that.
but...
So the gameplay then suffered. And because WoW had coasted for so long on its good gameplay,
okay.
and then the gameplay took a hit and the story was bad, implosion, explosion, all kinds of things going on. Now,
it's fine.
Dragonflight saw a lot of those characters like Anduin just disappear for a while. So the last time we saw him was then. And now those characters are coming back because the story is the focus. Let's talk about the first thing. Is this a good idea to focus on the story? Yes, absolutely. In talking to the devs and speaking to lots of people, once the people did realize that the grass was greener elsewhere, and yes, this is FF14. Yeah. Like, people found out you can absolutely tell one of the most compelling stories going in RPGs in an MMO. It's totally possible. If your writing is good enough and you spend time with these characters and you care about these characters, you could reduce millions of players to tears on a semi-regular basis and have them overjoyed and extraordinarily excited as well. All the emotional beats can be hit in an MMO. FF14, in my opinion, after 20... a lot more experience than that, actually, has two of the best RPG stories ever told happening within that game.
Yeah.
And so...
it does.
They realize, like, this is a big deal. If we can get our players to actually care about our characters, to be invested in their presence, then we have something special here, because our gameplay still exists. And that's why, going into Dragonflight from the War Within, the gameplay is tight. Dragonflight did a solid job of getting the gameplay back on point, relatively simplistic systems of how you control your character, tightening all that up, and they're going to continue that going forward without major deviation, because that works. Now they need people to care about the characters, and this is the problem, right? This is the problem, because for the last few years, they have really mullered and buried a lot of those characters. And when I see Jaina pop on the screen now, I'm like, oh, she's going to say something, and then she's going to teleport away and disappear for ages. Sure enough, during the War Within pre-patch, that's exactly what she does.
Well, looking back at Dragonflight, I was worried because I love Rathian. I think Rathian is a very cool character. And I'm thinking Rathian is going to be a main character. I also love Alexstrasza. These are two characters I really like. I love Nosdormu and Caligos. Those are all great characters. And now that Dragonflight is over, I can say I still love those characters. And every time that I met those characters, they acted like themselves throughout all of Dragonflight. So I would say that is a huge positive step compared to what we'd seen in BFA. We had characters that were the main focus the entire time, and I still like those people. Also, Ysera, I even saw the Winter Queen again, who is a character I do like from Shadowlands, and she was, she had a pretty good moment in Dragonflight too. So, also Khadgar right here, pretty consistently written and likable character. So yeah, that's a positive sign. And in terms of characters that are going to be the focus going into Dwarf Inn, Alaria is a big one, and I really like everything I've seen from her so far. They also released an animated short a couple days ago that gives you the backstory, a lot of backstory of Alaria, and gets you into her mindset, which I think was very nice, and you should definitely watch it before you start War Within if you can. So far I'm seeing all the everything that I'm seeing, all the work they're putting into the writing seems to be paying off. I'm happy with all that I've seen. I haven't seen anything that made me be like, what? Why is she acting like that? You know?
It's the pre-patch. And I was like,
that was an awesome
there
short.
It is. And these characters are memes. And I'm looking at Magni, and I'm thinking about this story. And this story is somebody who's dedicated their entire life to being communicating through Azeroth. And she's abandoned him. She's betrayed him. He can't communicate anymore. Now, what really got me going is this actually parallels a major story beat in one of FF14's expansions that did result in the payoff. Thinking about this story, and this story is somebody who's dedicated their entire life to being communicating through Azeroth, and she's abandoned him. She's betrayed him. He can't communicate anymore. Now, what really got me going is this actually parallels a few years. They have exactly what she does. It's the pre-patch. And I was like, there it is. And these characters are memes. And I'm looking at Magni, and I'm thinking about this story. And this story is somebody who's dedicated their entire life to being communicating through Azeroth. And she's abandoned him. She's betrayed him. He can't communicate anymore. Now, what really got me going is this actually parallels a major story beat in one of FF14's expansions that did result in the payoff, which came in Endwalker, of this build-up, paid off in a way that...
I'm thinking about, what is he referring to? Are we talking about Heidelin got weaker over time and people couldn't communicate with her anymore? Nobody could hear from her anymore. Yeah, maybe.
People talk about it.
Yeah,
as
Heidelin
like
stopped talking to us.
Devastatingly crushing moments they've had in media, not just books, or movies, or video games. In media, it's
because she got so weak, she couldn't.
It's haunting, and it makes you feel awful, but in like a good way. Like, it's hard to describe without spoiling it, but when you witness and the revelation of what's been going on happens to you, you're like, oh my god. Oh, and you're crushed. Now,
yeah,
they're trying to do a DC universe here.
That's so nice how Mike was able to experience the good suffering you can get from a good story, you know? Because I think before he started FF14, he hadn't played any game that made him cry before. And so for him, it's nice to see that he has a new appreciation for what value a good story can add to a game and how much it can get you invested in the game and make you care about it so much more.
That's for the comic book movie.
That's so nice.
And speed run through this to get you to care about it. But how do they overcome this?
I love that.
This is the big problem. This is what Metzen & Co. is working on in the background. It's ironic that we're talking about this now because a lot of people have been questioning where is Metzen. And I've tried to have talks with Metzen and stuff earlier on, and it does appear for the most part that Metzen is kind of on a media blackout besides very specific things that he can do for Blizzard and not being involved in interviews and focusing entirely on the game. Okay. And that's great. How do they fix this? How do they get over this wall of cynicism? How do they repair the damage done to their characters? The damage done to Sylvanas.
There's only one way. There's only one way to repair your reputation, and it's to make good content. That's the only way. The proof is going to be in the pudding way for everybody. And for me, Dragonflight was that. They showed me that they can make a good game. They can do a good job with the story writing. And so I think that they really need to nail the landing with War Within.
I know right now that a lot of you, and I gauged
through
my,
action.
you know, a few thousand people in Twitch, what do you think of Anduin right now? And the response was overwhelming. He's a pussy. He's a cook. He's a loser. He's a shambles and all this. And that's really sad for me. But
that is what people think about Anduin in your chat? Buns, what do you think about Anduin? Because I don't think that at all. That's so crazy. For me, I felt like he is someone that is a victim. Like, he's hurt. He's trying to find himself. He's on this journey of self-discovery, and he feels disconnected from the light. Let's do a poll. Like, he's dealing with it. He's going through it. Oh my God. You never been beat down by life before? I'm sure that everybody had a time in their life where you had some fucked up shit happen to you and you needed to work through that. And maybe you didn't seem that strong at the time because it's the adversity. It's getting through that shit that makes you strong. Nobody's born strong. You only get strength after you made it through hardship, after you got through weakness comes first before you become a Chad. You're not just born a Chad. And you know what? It's very un-Chad behavior to downplay somebody going through a survival mode, somebody facing and confronting their weakness, because it's the only way to grow. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Oh, he's not allowed to be human. Oh, he's not allowed to suffer. He's not allowed to cry. That's up. Totally disagree. Pressure makes diamonds. That's what I'm saying. That's not very that's not very demure. True. Anduin's playing the victim card rather than trying to rise above, like a really playing the victim card. He is a victim. He's not playing the victim card. He is dealing with trauma. He has PTSD. He was mind controlled and forced to do shit he didn't want to do. That's really traumatic for him. And he's got to cope with it. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He should be acting like a king. He will, but he isn't a king yet. And that's why when he learns to deal with that, it's going to turn him into the person that he needs to be. And that's going to be really fucking cool.
Because the story they're trying to tell, or have been trying to tell, particularly in the Shadowlands, because we didn't really see him since then. Can't act like a king yet.
You realize he's pretty young. He's a kid. You know? Okay. Let me ask you something. Do you remember your first breakup? Do you remember the first time something like actually heartbreaking happened to you? Do you think that you acted like a king at that time? Looking back? Do you feel like whenever you were, I don't know, 18, 19, and you had to overcome some challenge that seemed like really awful. Maybe it was awful. Do you think you would have handled that better now than you did back then? Jim Arc. Yeah. Yeah, you look back and you can see now how much you changed and how much you've grown. Yeah.
Is really dark and it's really sad, and a lot of work has been put into it.
How old is he actually? 17?
Just did not come across in that storytelling at all.
Is he like, I don't know how old he is.
Continues in a really good way in The War Within. And it's hard for, they're hoping people will take a step back and reconnect with these characters, because if they can have the tight gameplay and a great story, they have the winning combination. They have it. But there's a lot of other things to fix. The pacing of the story. Like I said, I've played through The War Within. It's missing all the cutscenes, and the War Within pre-patch gives me hope for this. The pacing of the story. If you've been back to Dragonflight in the last, say, 6...
You need to play it with the cutscenes, because the cutscenes are banging. The cutscenes are really good. All the cutscenes I've seen were very impressive so far. So you need to... You said... Are you saying Anduin had the hots for Sylvanas? No. That's not what happened. Okay, I'm not saying that Anduin went through a heartbreak. I was just trying to get people to empathize with someone who was going through it. Okay, obviously what Anduin went through is way worse than having a heartbreak when you're a teenager. But I was just hoping that I could find something that most people could probably relate to of a time when they had to learn to become a little stronger, and maybe it wasn't that easy for them in the beginning. Okay, I was trying to help people tap into that empathy for the guy. That's all.
And played through the campaign, you will know the pacing of the story is not good. Particular highlights here of Viranoth, the Ice Dragon Lady, who, if you just play through the campaign back to back without the weird breaks, and we'll come back to that, is baddie, best mate, member of the Avengers, all in about 25 minutes. There's just no room that breathes. There's no subtlety to it. There's no nuance going on with this. It's not built up. There's no speculation. There's no theorizing. There's no lots of straws falling on the camel's back that makes her switch. And then...
Are you suggesting that the change of heart that Viranoth had was too sudden and that there wasn't enough build-up for it? That's so crazy. I mean... I felt like there was some buildup, but I can totally see how that could be an issue if you felt like there wasn't enough. Yeah, I can see that.
Us to trust her and to earn that trust and do all those things. It's all like hammered into you as fast as humanly possible.
It's too fast
to keep the story going. Because, of course, there is a general mindset that World of Warcraft players don't care about the story. And you've got a circular situation there. If your story is not good and compelling, then why would we care about the story? So I don't care about the story, so I'm not interested when you end up like me and your story is getting compelling. And I don't care because I'm coming into the story expecting it to be bad. And therefore, it just goes round and round in a circle. And they're trying to pull that back by saying... Look, we're going to do this story over 6 years. We're dropping subtle hints, like Terran pointed out in their Wowcast. It's like we've had Xal'atath, like shadows of her appearing for quite some time now. We're really starting to foreshadow. We're starting to do these things. But these things don't really happen in the WoW story, and certainly not for the last few years, that make any sense. Suddenly just like, rah, Ashara's here now, with the patch, and now there's a city under the ocean. It's been there for 10,000 years, but it looks like it's been developed for like 6 weeks, right? It's not adding up. There's a logical fallacy going on here, and it doesn't make any sense. And now they're saying, like, look, we're going to make logical sense. One thing I will say is the War Within, without spoilers, does make logical sense. There's a lot going on there that works. So, pacing. One thing I really liked about this War Within pre-patch system is
I personally was okay with Viranoth, with her arc. I thought it was fine, because I actually did think that there was some build-up to her decision to side with Alexstrasza in the end, because she had felt estranged from Feroc and her brothers, feeling like Feroc had started to want to impose his will on everyone in the same way that she felt that the Titans had been wanting to do that. She felt like she didn't really have anywhere else to go at the time, and decided, well, might as well try to confront Alexstrasza about this. So I felt like it was okay. I didn't have an issue with it. I thought it was nice. But then again, I also understand that in the context of World of Warcraft, they have less space to work with in telling the story. They have very, very little space because they don't have that many cutscenes. They don't have that much like attention. They don't have as much attention spent and time spent on characters. So I kind of do understand his point that he made about how, well, maybe they feel like they don't want to spend a lot of time on it because they think players don't care about the story. But then now they're not spending enough time on it, so maybe more people don't care. But I think that the best solution to this is what they're doing in War Within a lot, which is you have two options when you talk to an NPC. You can click, tell me more. Or you can click stay a while and listen, and you'll have a voiced segment where they tell you about what's going on. You get more lore information for people who care about that. Or you can click skip it, I don't care, and you can just skip that entire thing. So they keep the most important points in game for people that just want to follow along in the most basic way. But you can choose to listen to some of the longer backstories if you want to, and some of the more in-depth character development if you want. So I think this is a pretty good way to go about it.
Pacing of the little cutscenes was much, much better because they weren't out to just be exposition overload, which a lot of the cutscenes in WoW have been for a long time, including Dragonflight, where you just randomly get a cutscene at the end of a quest line.
By the way, there was another quest I remember where like her own people had been betrayed.
Something, and everybody just does loads of things all at once to move the story forward. We go from like, we're going on the offensive, to then suddenly all these big stars appear, and now we're the Avengers, and now we're doing this. That happens in like one cutscene. So this time it's Illyria and Khadgar, just bringing Illyria in. Little bit of exposition, little bit of story, a little bit of temptation, and then off you go to do relevant quest lines. I was like, this is better. This is better. This is much better. Then we get the Magni cutscene. We understand that he's doing it for us. He hates what's happened. He's doubting Azeroth herself, and he's injured because obviously he's going to reveal what we need to go to the Isle of Dawn, which is the War Within launch. But that's it. And after that, there's some post-cutscene stuff for the people who are interested, with the family, introducing these characters that are going to get to know in War Within, giving you a little bit more backstory, a little bit more, but it's not a lot. It's a little bit. We just get a little bit of development from Magni, and then it stops. Much better. And only a couple of quests in between. Okay. Skippable if you don't want to watch them. But for everybody else, this is much, much better. This pacing has to be better. I haven't listened to the Metzen interview yet, to be honest with you, because it's the morning of.
Oh, the Metzen interview.
But I have seen some feedback on Twitter about our worst fears being realized, is that they're still going to go with the storyline being broken into chunks. I think this is a massive mistake. I don't know who's watching at Blizzard, but I think this is a huge mistake. I really do. The other games that you're trying to compete against, FF14, Guild Wars 2 even, which does its story like this as well, releases its story in...
Wait. You didn't listen to the interview yet, but you're concerned about some of the feedback the interview got. You better listen to the interview first. You better go back and listen to this whole interview before you get worried about it based on what people have said. Because one thing I've learned is that a lot of times what people say, it might not have anything to do with the interview at all. I don't trust what people have to say one bit.
Massive, massive chunk at the start. It's actually a very enjoyable experience at the start of the expansions to play through this epic story, which ultimately in WoW would result in the raid. But they're still probably going to break it up into these bite-sized pieces.
I'll see what Metzen had to say.
Which come every few weeks, couple of weeks, something like that. This pacing issue needs to be resolved because, frankly, I'm not the only one who forgets the details of what happened previously by the time the next bit rolls around, and therefore my interest has waned a little bit. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember we kind of did something like that, right? You remember the main points, but like the little details and the subtleties that immerse you into a story, they get lost, and what you end up with is this like every few weeks 1 hour segment of story that you play through, and then you go through it so quickly it doesn't really soak in, and then you're like moving on and the references are gone, and by the time you get to the next part, whenever that releases in whichever patch or anything like that, you're like, oh okay, yeah. Or the next week, which is how they've done it a long time. It's like another week passes and you just kind of, it's like a book that you read 1 page of a week. Right? You forget.
Well, then maybe that's why you felt the way you did about Virenov. Maybe that's the reason you felt like it wasn't built up enough. Because I felt like it was a little bit more coherent than what you're describing. But I'm pretty sure I did a bunch of story all at once. Because I'm pretty sure that there were several patches that I have done at once. And then I've gone back and done it again on other characters. So
some of the stuff that's happened
maybe
in the last
that's
few pages,
part of
because
it.
you're spreading this so thin. And I know the story isn't going to be as robust as we would expect from 14 or Guild Wars.
But it's a solid criticism. It's absolutely true. And an issue, I think, whenever you are like reading one page of a book every week or every couple of months.
That gap is a pain,
yeah.
a pain point that I think needs to be resolved. That's
totally fair.
And certainly it's probably not going to be done for War Within, but maybe for Midnight they should consider doing like a big story beat that goes all the way through. That isn't just like exploring the zones in the campaign, which is many separate stories that don't push the main narrative forward that much, like Hallowfall does in War Within. And then we're into the Nerubians by then. But the rest of it is sort of groundwork and setting. And FF14's expansion Dawn Trail, even if you haven't played it, has recently hit this issue because they spent a lot of time world building without the main narrative going forward very much. And you can see that expansion has had mixed reviews because they weren't just like going hard on the main theme, which is a slight difference they've made in the storytelling here. And I don't want WoW to fall into that trap because first impressions are everything. So
I should not get on a tangent about this right now. I'm like, how much world building? Can you really call it world building if you spend hours looking for 10 different ingredients to make a taco? Like, did I really learn that much about these people in the world in that time? Like, what about in Pacha, right? Did I learn a lot about the Pelu besides they're traders and they have alpacas and the alpacas have saddles? Like, I don't know if also, they have ponchos there. I remember that. We helped the guy get the poncho. Like, world building is one thing, but I feel like there was a lot of fluff where there just wasn't a whole lot. You know, I'm not going to get on this. Nope.
How to fix these characters that have been turned into memes.
I'm not going to do it.
Into characters
we'll be here all day. We'll be here all day.
All the evidence is there. Everything they're going to do, and their pacing is getting better. So I've decided this. I actually did this with Guild Wars 2, and it worked out phenomenally. I'm going to let the past go. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to give them a chance. By doing that, I'm going to pretty much forget everything that happened pre the War Within. I'm going to pretend I've never met Magni Bronzebeard before. I'm going to pretend I've never met Khadgar before. Jaina, all those things. All the things that have twisted and mutilated a lot of this story over the last few years. I'm going to let it go.
You're going to let it go.
I'm going to treat it as fresh. I'm going to treat it as new and see if I have a newfound interest in this world beyond its raids, beyond its talents, beyond its combat, beyond the things that I have loved for all these years, for a story I have wanted to enjoy for so long. I'm going to give it a try.
I don't know what will come out of
it. And in fact, I have already played the War Within story.
That's so great.
But now I'm going to come in with fresh eyes because I skipped over the Dwarven story. Why? I hate the dwarves in Warcraft.
What? You hate dwarves in Warcraft? Are you crazy? It's such a good video and you're going to throw that in at the very end? Are you shitting me? Who hates dwarves in Warcraft? That's one of the best things in Warcraft. What the? That's probably why you play Horde.
So annoying. So I skipped over them.
Oh my God.
I'm going to come to it with
this was so wholesome and you're going to, why would, damn
guys, and see what comes out the other end. And I'll report back to you.
Unbelievable.
On whether or not it changed.
Early happy birthday.
I wish I'd known that before I hit you with it.
Changed anything for me? Are we there yet? Are we on the way to something magnificent?
No way.
I don't know.
No way.
But Blizzard's clearly making concerted efforts to make this work.
Maybe he will like dwarves after.
Every single time I go into this with that old mindset, I'm ready for failure. And there's an old phrase that makes a lot of sense to me after doing the recent stuff. If you go out looking for a fight, you're going to find a fight.
Yeah.
And if I go into a WoW story looking for it to be crap,
true,
I'm going to find things that I don't like.
True.
So, let's see what Metzen's got for us.
I'm actually really proud, though. I mean, jokes aside, I think this is such a nice video because at the beginning, he reflected on the way that he had been approaching the story, and he felt like he had been a little bit of a toxic shitter about it, that he had been just making fun of it and not taking the cutscene very seriously when this was actually something really up that happened to Magni. And this is Magni is a dwarf. So having that, that moment of reflection and deciding to, give it a fair shot, that's growth, man. I'm proud of it. I hope that it actually is good. It's gonna be terrible if he doesn't like it. And then he'll be like, well, I gave it a fair shot and I regret it. So far, I mean, I'm level 74, so I don't think he's gonna have that impression. I think so far it's been pretty solid. Yeah. Anyways, he got yeeted by Azeroth all the way across the room. Yeah, this was a nice video. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that he can. I really hope that he can learn to love the story and also let go of his pain that he experienced in Shadowlands. It's time to move on. It's time to move on. It's time to move on from Shadowlands.